I'm Melanie Glado, and I'm a consultant. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today, Craig, about IT/OT convergence. And a little bit about my background. I was a Chief Information Officer at BP. I've worked in upstream oil and gas for 8 years, and I'm continuing to work in the oil and gas industry. And when I was a CIO, one of the things I realized was that as hard as it is for us to implement technology, that's actually the easy part. And the hard part is getting that technology integrated into our businesses and to get people to change how they think and how they work based on that technology. So I broke out on my own and became a consultant who specializes in business technology strategy, looking at security strategy, and doing business transformation planning. So what I want to talk to you today about in the area of IT/OT convergence is how are we going to transform our business, and how are we going to transform our people that we need to work with? How are we going to change how people think about this? And how are we going to bring those people together? Because that's really the hard part. So before I get into the specifics of that, I want to tell you a bit of a story to illustrate the power of a framework I'm going to show you about how to get people to work together. I was working as a business information manager for the field in Alaska on our North Slope operations. And one day the field manager came up to me and he said, one of the main field managers, who was very well respected, said, I'm having this problem with mobile rounds and readings. We bought this mobile rounds and readings technology. We aren't getting the business benefit we thought we would see out of it. Can you help me? And I said, of course I can help you. And so he said, great. We have a meeting with our VP of operations next week, and we'd like you to come present for myself and all the other field managers what we could do about this. Well, a week is not very much time to put together a whole new strategy for mobile rounds and reading. So I tapped one of my most experienced, best consultants that I worked with, and we worked long and hard hours into the night, and he made me some beautiful, gorgeous PowerPoint presentations. He was very good at that. And there I go to the meeting. So it started at the top of the hour, and I'm sitting there in an empty meeting room, all by myself, with my beautiful slides that people worked late into the night on, and nobody was there. Now, I've worked in operations long enough to know that sometimes, especially the leadership, gets overtaken by events. So I wasn't too concerned, but after 10 minutes went by, I started to get concerned, and pretty soon, the field manager who had invited me came in and said, something's happened, and we're not gonna be able to meet today, but I've got 3 minutes. So why don't you tell me what you've got going on here? So I was like, okay, and I took the slides and I put them aside, and I said, here's what we were thinking, here's our plan, here's what we think we could do for you as a business, and he was like, great. How much money do you need? And I was like, well, phase one's gonna be $1.1 million. And he says, okay, I'll send you the cost code tomorrow, I gotta run. And I was like, great. And so I went back to my desk, and up comes my consultant. He's like, hey, how'd it go? Did they like the slides? And I was like, I didn't have the heart to tell him that we didn't even look at the slides, and I just said it went really well, and the slides were very effective. So why I like that story is to illustrate to you that I didn't do that through my technical power. I did that through the soft skills that I had developed by developing a relationship with this particular field manager over the course of 2 years. And to me, that illustrates that a very important thing for us to learn as technical practitioners, and that's that soft skills can bring you hard dollars. And that's the importance and the value of what I'm about to show you. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. Can you tell me out there, what's the power of a network? So I have some things, and what's the power of a network? Connection. Connection is the power of a network. So if we want to build the industrial Internet of Things, we're going to have to connect all of these devices, and we're going to need some protocols to do that. And if we want to build the industrial Internet of Things, we're going to have to build what I call the industrial Internet of People. So there's lots of people that we need with lots of different skill sets to connect all of these devices. So just like our network devices, people have I/O devices. They're right here. They're our eyes, our ears, and our mouth. So this is what we're going to use to build the industrial Internet of People. And I'm going to talk you through a framework that I've developed. I'm a consultant. I have a 3-point framework, like all good consultants. So I'm going to show you how to do this. And the power of what I'm going to show you is that you can use this framework to connect any people. You can use this framework to connect your IT people with your OT people. You can use it to connect your boomers with your millennials. And most importantly, you can use it to connect your project with people who have the budgets to fund it. This is very important because as you looked at the list of the skills that Craig talked about that you'll need in the future, even in IT, I come from IT, those skill sets do not sit in one person. We use many different suppliers and many different people, so it's very important to be able to connect them. So to bring it together, this is the framework I'm going to walk you through. It starts with what I call anthropology, and this is learning to understand another person. Once you understand them, then you can start to build relationships, and then you'll learn more about them, and so it goes. And then once you've done that, you can begin working on influencing. So let me walk you through these 3 very simple steps. Before I do that, all of this is based on one very simple thing. So I'm going to ask a question. I don't have the fancy poll set up, so I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand. So who here thinks when somebody comes up to you in your job that it's your job to have the right answer for that person? I mean, I pretty much think that, right? So now I'm going to ask you a different question. Who here thinks that when somebody comes up to you in your job, it's your job to ask them the right questions? Right. So what I like to say is that in the space between 2 people here, there's an opportunity to make a connection. So this guy's going to try to connect with this lady, and he's going to say, hey, I've been researching this technology, and I think we should implement X. And that's going to basically run into a wall. And she's going to say, well, I think we need to implement Y. And this starts to become a battle of opinions, and we all know what they say about opinions. So a different protocol that you might try is this gentleman is going to try to connect with these folks in the plant. And he's going to say, hey, guys, what do you think we should do? Which technology are you thinking about? And basically, that then opens a door for a communication channel. So he can begin to have a dialogue with them. So maybe they even think that they're going to have the same technology, but simply by asking the question, you're opening a door through which someone else can engage you. So the very basic thing, so that you can all go back to checking your email to take away from this, is that in the space between 2 people where there's an opportunity for connection, remember this: statements build walls, and questions open doors. So the first step of my framework is to seek first to understand. And I have this idea of thinking about becoming what I call an organizational anthropologist. And I like this picture of this curious young lady who's looking out across the savannah at some foreign tribe. So anytime I go into an organization or a different team, I imagine them this way in my mind, because it helps me think with curiosity about who they are. And then I can ask myself some questions. What's the culture of this group? What do they value? How do they communicate? Are they email communicators? Are they phone communicators? Do they have big group meetings? How do they communicate? Again, I'm watching, I'm listening, and I'm asking a lot of questions to try to understand who they are. What are their incentive structures that they have in place? And what are their group dynamics? This will help you understand how to then look at the power structures within that particular group. So those are the steps to becoming an organizational anthropologist. And I'd like to share with you my own anthropology experiment, being an IT person who's gone into OT. So when you're an IT person and you go into OT, you understand something, and that is that you deal with real-time information that's right now. And in IT, we deal with a lot of analytics from the past as well as projecting and scheduling out into the future. So this is our perception of right now. And on a project that I'm working with a midstream client, I went out to the plant because we're working on a technology that spans both spaces to talk to him. And I said, okay, tell me about right now. And what I learned was that right now is actually a very big place, and there's a lot going on right now, which made me change my perception of how I thought about what I had to do, that it's not really a flat timeline, it's more like a pipeline, with this slice of right now moving down through it constantly, where we have to then, as IT, help to abstract that away so that you can use that information to research the past as well as project into the future without disrupting what's happening right now. So that was really powerful to me when I realized that that's how he was thinking. And it was interesting because I was talking about replacing some software that we use to do our pipeline scheduling at a client that I'm working with. And he got very upset with me that there was any way an IT system could impact the ability of us to move oil. Because he lived in the right now space, he was thinking about, yes, we could load vessels, we could take in oil, but the thing is we wouldn't know a week from now how much oil was coming without the scheduling system, which all resided in the IT network. So we were able to kind of build a bridge where he understood all the complexity that we have to deal with looking in the past and the future, and I could understand what we were dealing with right now. So this was a way of thinking about it that was helpful for me, perhaps will be helpful for you and your teams. So once you understand someone, the next step is to build a relationship. And I have, once again, 3 very simple steps to doing this effectively to build professional relationships. The first one is to be genuine. So are you a plant engineer? Are you a cybersecurity person? Just go be that. Don't try to be something that you're not. Because people have great BS detectors, and they'll figure it out. And nobody likes to be fooled, so just be genuine, be who you are. Second point, bring value. So give away something that you have or do that's valuable to that other person. Third thing is to build trust. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Make and keep good commitments. Be trustworthy. And the most important thing to remember when you build business relationships is that relationships aren't about me, they're about you, they're about the other person. So if you go back to the story I told at the very beginning, that wasn't the first time I had interacted with that particular field manager. Like I said, it was about 2 years into my working there. The first time I met him was when I made one of my first visits out to the field. I worked in the town and oil field operations in Alaska. Our field is about an hour-and-a-half flight away on a 737, so it's 800 miles north of town. And one of the important things that I did to start building relationships with them was I actually went to the field, to their space. I put on what I called my blue suit, my work boots. I went around the plant, and I actually talked to people. And so in the course of this, I met this field manager. And I sat down and I started talking to him. I said, I'm Melanie and I'm come from IT. I'm here to help, which always makes people suspicious, but so we were talking and I just started asking him questions. What's important to you? What's going on here? And on and on. And it was something very simple that happened. He said, well, I'm really having a hard time remembering my passwords. And I said, oh, we have this little tool. It's called Password Manager. It's encrypted. I'll send it to you, and then you can use it to remember your passwords. And he was like, great. And I sent it to him that day, and that was the beginning of my relationship with a person, which later led to $1.1 million in 5 minutes. So it's very important to start small and build on that. Then I want to talk to you about what I call the influencing spectrum. So what I want to do is ask you to think in your mind of someone that you work with, and ask yourself, why do I work with you? Okay? Now, I want you to become that person looking at yourself and imagine him saying, why do I work with you? There's really 2 reasons. There's 2 reasons we work with people. One is because I have to work with you, and the other one is because I want to work with you. And so here's the secret. The more you can push people towards the I work with you because I want to work with you side of the spectrum, the more support and buy-in you will get for your agenda. So how are you going to do that? There's a lot of different influencing techniques, and I wanted to talk to you about one that I think is going to be very effective for bridging the gap between IT and OT, and that's quite simply asking for help or advice. There are 2 reasons why asking for help or advice is key. It exists on 2 levels. First is because, be honest, you don't have all the answers, and if you ask somebody for their help or advice, you might actually end up with a better product at the end of the day. Because my management philosophy has always been that no one of us is as smart as all of us. I used to work in a team of software engineers, and even our very worst software engineer, he was terrible, this one team I worked on. I mean, like, he wrote the buggiest code. He clearly didn't even execute it before he checked it into the code repository, and you'd call him out on it, and it was just terrible. But I was in charge of getting the team to agree how we would solve problems. And one of the things that I realized is even with that guy in the room, when he gave his input, our whole output as a team was better. So even when the worst person on our whole team was giving us ideas, our ideas were better and stronger. So reason number 1 is that you might actually end up getting a better idea. Reason number 2 is that it will help you build a relationship. When you go and you ask someone for help or advice, it conveys 2 very important things. 1, I am humble, I don't have all the answers. 2, you're important, you're interesting, you do have answers. And that relationship will set up a different kind of scenario where they will now become invested. So it's very interesting because sometimes, even if you can't implement the advice that they've given you simply by going and asking for their opinion and asking for their advice, they will be interested and invested in the outcome of what you're doing. So it's a very simple thing that you can do. One influencing strategy. I have many more if you want to come talk to me after, but I thought this would be the most helpful for this situation. So just to bring it all together, 3 simple steps that you can do to work with any group. Number 1, become an anthropologist. Seek to understand them. Number 2, build business relationships, build productive relationships, and bring them value. Once you've done that, understand them better, keep building relationships, and then when you get to a certain point, you can begin influencing their agenda. So I hope that that's been a very simple, very easy, very practical way for you to look at handling the people challenge of IT-OT convergence. Thank you.